Hi everyone, I'm Ashley Casovan. I'm the executive director of a nonprofit called AI Global, and we're dedicated to building practical tools to support the responsible implementation of AI. Today I'm here to talk about what does that mean for practitioners and regulators, and how can we do AI responsibly. So at AI Global, we were founded about 3 years ago now, and we're really concerned with the implications of this growing field of AI. And when we think about AI, we really think about it in the biggest and broadest sense, recognizing that it's really important to do technology responsibly either way, independent of whether there's learning components in the systems or otherwise. That said, we know that there are significant differences when it comes to these types of tools, so we are really trying to think about what those implications are and who's it impacting the most. That's why we have such a significant and diverse group within our board, both of members and advisors. We really strive to understand how we can build different types of applications or systems that are helping to support what people need when they're going about their work. And the reason why I was really interested in joining AI Global as its executive director was because I started doing this work for the Government of Canada, thinking through what different types of policies need to exist to support the different people that are building and using AI tools and systems within the government. And one of the things that I realized when in that role is that we can create these broad overarching policies and based on best practices and principles. But really, when it comes down to it, people within departments that have subject matter expertise that are ranging from how to start building automation into our vehicles to ensuring that there's appropriate cybersecurity to ensuring that the best decisions are made when we're thinking about how we can automate the flow of people getting visas to come into the country. They already know so much about their different domains and subject matters to get them to really understand that all of the vast implications of now how to apply these new concepts of what it means to be ethical or responsible in that space can become really, really difficult. So I thought that it was a really interesting opportunity to join a existing set of subject matter experts who are really thinking about those same things. As I mentioned, and these are the examples that I have working with AI, when we started to do this work within a Government of Canada context, we were really thinking about how do we automate and improve existing systems that are able to serve Canadians better. So improving access to benefits. And in a time like right now, we know that people need those access to benefits even quicker. And so having a way to cut through the red tape and get people the benefits or access to resources that they need becomes increasingly important. But there is also so much stuff that happens behind the scenes. Like Canadian Rail wants to make sure that it's safe and secure, it's delivering the resources that it needs to where it needs to go and ensuring that there isn't any sort of disruption. And so this is where we saw the use of a lot of different monitoring and tools to ensure the safety of the rail system. And then in interesting different aspects, we have just easy to use chatbots to help navigate the tax system easier. So now we're all going through that, and sometimes it's really difficult to just even understand. And so we see, I'm speaking about this from my public sector experience, but we see all of these different types of applications exist within all aspects of our life. And even though we understand and recognize the benefits, we wouldn't be having conferences like this if that weren't the case. There's still increasingly difficult amounts of public concern related to these applications, especially because there's so much unknown when it comes to what they are, how are they making decisions, and how is that truly impacting people, and in particular people that are in different vulnerable populations. And so this is something that we take really, really seriously. And are quite concerned when there's the perpetuation of those fears in especially news reports or in different media activities that are really thinking about what one use case and not thinking about these broader ways to govern or manage these activities. And so these are just a couple examples that we've seen where using things like facial recognition to determine children's behavior in school, or challenges that we've seen in hospitals, and obviously predictive policing. That said, when we focus too much on these broader negative aspects of it, we're instead looking to just shut down as opposed to think about what's possible and how we can balance this innovation with protection of the public and appropriate oversight. And that's really what we're setting to do. I didn't mention or didn't really speak to the last image there, which is looking at the workforce. And I know that that's a significant, or continuing to be a significant, challenge. And one of the things that we think about a lot is that implication that AI has on humans in all of the different aspects of work that we do. And so whether it's just looking at the implications of those technologies or the impact that it has on somebody's job, we are really focused on those things in terms of the tools that we build. So I speak about the different tools and actions that we're taking. These are the high-level version of how we're trying to make a difference. And so one, that's through creating awareness through bringing all of these different types of resources and activities together through an online community portal. And that's helping to help practitioners make sense of the information that's even out there, and then also how they can help think about it in terms of their context. It's also allowing practitioners to see who the different subject matter experts are in these different domains. And again, having the opportunity to connect with them more directly. So that's the community portal, which I am sure if you have questions, I'm happy to address them. But I'll really focus today on the work that we're doing to create a responsible AI trust index to support how to navigate and mitigate harm as addressed in the previous slides. And so one of the biggest concerns that I've seen when I was doing the work with the Government of Canada is that we could write these policies based on high-level principles and best practices, but there's no global benchmark for what responsible AI actually means. And so with a field that is, again, so broad and in many cases fairly undefined, We've seen estimates of AI expecting to add over $15 trillion to the world economy by 2030. And so we see these incredible advancements that are being made in these tools. But also back to that, the fear, and we saw it just with the one Ipsos poll, but with the hundreds and thousands of documents that have come out with recommendations and different guidance from really respected institutions, we know that this is a significant challenge that's facing us, and that's something that we need to really make sense of. The challenge with having hundreds and thousands of documents, and this is why I referenced that these practitioners that are subject matter experts in their various different domains can't really be expected to know that those different frameworks exist or principles exist, and then also know how to apply them to their work in a meaningful way. And so this is the challenge that we've set out to take on. And so this is why one of the key activities that we want to do is build a responsible AI certification mark. And we've seen in other industries how this has really benefited the advancement of and use and responsible use of those industries. So through forestry, coffee, and then even the fish that we buy in a store, we have a better sense, because somebody's done that background legwork for us, which wood is the best to buy, or where we can get fair trade coffee, and then which fish that we're eating is sustainable. And so those examples are very business to consumer centric. And one of the challenges with AI is that there's a lot of middle people along the way. And so some of the ways that we've really thought to make something like this ground truth of what does responsible mean and how to apply that, we've really been thinking about who those audiences are. And so we really think that it's companies that are committed to being responsible. And we've seen lots of organizations, large and small, put out their own ethical framework and really think through what those different implications are within their organization, whether they're setting up ethics boards or they have oversight review panels on each of the projects. It's a great start, but there's still no, again, benchmark to establish what good actually looks like in those circumstances. And one thing that I have firsthand experience with is through government procurement. We were able to set up a government procurement activity for looking at which vendors the Government of Canada could work with. And we wanted to make sure that they were evaluated against competency, capacity, and ethics. But again, having this benchmark for what does ethical actually mean in this context, it still doesn't exist in a very clear-cut way. And so that's why we're really looking to define that. And we also know that we're seeing a lot of companies that are interacting with one another in this space as well, using different components of their system to interact with one another. And we also know that IP is increasingly important. And so we want to make sure that there's even a way that businesses and businesses are able to interact with one another in a trusted way. And finally, regulators are really starting to tackle, especially from a privacy lens and a consumer lens, what these implications are. And so we really hope to, by helping to define this, we can help to establish that benchmark. So we see this working in a similar way to, if those of you are familiar with the LEED symbol, it's a umbrella certification that references other certifications and other types of standards. So we're not looking to set additional standards. We're very involved with ISO. We're very involved with IEEE and the work that they're doing, ITU, etc. There's many standards that are going on in this space. What we're trying to do is bring all of those together in an easy and comprehensible way for practitioners. So by setting and establishing a framework, we're able to then work with an accreditation body to make sure that that is an accreditable standard. And then there can be third-party audit and evaluation of that work through various different certification bodies. And then because transparency is a really important aspect of what we're doing, we want to be able to share those results on the Responsible AI portal. So this is a high level, you might think, moonshot idea. And while it is really big and very ambitious, we've recognized the small steps that we need to take to get there. And so the first activity was to look through all of those various different documents that I referenced earlier and really understand what are those best practices, what are those key issues that are being raised, and how are the subject matter experts thinking to address them. Also, what are the standards bodies most concerned with, and what are the different components that they're thinking about addressing through these different standards? And so to do that, we put together a lot of analysis and then came up with these domains of what does trust mean in this space. And given that that's that main answer that we're trying to address is how do we get people that are using these systems and working with these systems to trust that those systems are doing what they say. And we can see, especially with many of the challenges I'm sure you are aware with, of the lack of explainability or interpretability, especially of black box systems, understanding how they're arriving at the decisions that they're arriving at, and can we really trust that? So these being main issues, we wanted to address what those were or what those concerns were and think about how we can do that, thinking through what the data quality is or the different data inputs are, the robustness of a system. That includes both security and how that system is actually functioning and operating, accountability and compliance aspects, and bias and fairness, and then explainability and interpretability, as I already mentioned. So in order to start, again, we know that building a certification mark in a credible way will not only take a long time, but we really believe that it needs to be evidence-based. And so what that means, and why, if you remember at the beginning of the slides, I mentioned that the trust index that we're building is serving two activities. One is the certification mark, which is our longer term activity, and then the other one is what we're calling a design assistant. And so this is the open source version of that trust index. It started as a really big and messy spreadsheet where we took those best practices and the various different principles from these institutions, and we translated them into comprehensible questions and achievable responses. We've then taken that and we've put it into a more simplified questionnaire. You can just see a screenshot of it here, but we do have it available on the AI Global site. And when going through it, the idea is that it will help guide you to what those best practices are, again, in an easy to understand and easy to navigate way. And we believe that in doing this, we're able to help to address some of the unintentional consequences or any of the harms that may have been occurred, and really help people to think through when they're designing, developing, or deploying a system, what those best practices are. And so we didn't want to give a score in terms of a percentage to say this is good or bad. We still need to make those types of determinations, but we did want to provide some feedback in terms of what one could be doing and what, again, subject matter experts are saying to do in relation to these various different questions or different prompts that we're raising through this design assistant. And so what you get at the end of it is not only a ranking based on the questions that you've answered, but then also a bit of a report card to say, here's some of the recommendations that you should consider when doing that. So I think it's really important to know how we've built this. I've mentioned the assessment that was done from existing best practices, but we didn't do this in a silo at AI Global. It's been really important for us to do this in an open and transparent way, working with subject matter experts from ethicists to lawyers to engineers to public policy makers to really think through all of those different perspectives when we're building out and we're trying to address both the sociological, economical, and technological concerns that comes with these different types of AI systems. And so you can just see through here the different steps that we're taking. And when I mentioned that the trust index is really meant to create a evidence base for the certification mark, that's how we're using that open source design assistant to get that feedback, and then to understand what does good look like associated with all of these different practices, because in many circumstances we've said, yes, this is a good thing that needs to be done, but we're really not clear on what that actually means in practice in many circumstances. And so this also helps us work back with these standards bodies and regulators to say, these are the types of rules that do need to be set. It was too many to list, but these are some of the really key Trust Index collaborators that we've had to build this. And I not only want to thank them, but hope that you guys are able to check out AI Global website where we have the design assistant and more information on the work that we're doing. Thanks so much.